Welcome to the Fashion is Cool podcast, where we explore fashion's business side and the entrepreneurs behind it. Hosted by Dwight Carter, your guide to diverse careers and inspiring stories in fashion.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dwight Carter, your host for the Fashion is Cool podcast. Today we have Lisa Hugh, the owner of Lux and Nyx, whose mission is empowering high achievers with refined and multifunctional bags to make a difference in the world. Welcome to the show, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, Dwight.
You know, I like to play this little game of how did we meet with my
Oh,
guests.
gosh.
So,
Should have warned me about that question.
yeah. No, that's what's fun of that. So I know you had a residency at the Fashion Fund, right? But how did I hung out there, basically. I was doing stuff with that. I wasn't even a part of the Fashion Fund. Yeah. But you hung out there for a reason. I was just getting in the mix and meeting a bunch of people. But
yeah, but you were always around. You did a lot of things in the St. Louis community around fashion. So I think anytime someone mentioned fashion, they always mention your name.
Yeah, right.
I think somewhere along the line, we were like, oh, I know Dwight. But then it's like, I might not even have met you until we met, right?
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and there was a kind of a gap. Obviously, with COVID, everyone kind of disappeared in their own little worlds and tried to, come back up,
Yeah, it was a while before I saw you again.
Yeah, it was difficult to connect with everyone again, but I'm glad we can do that again now. So why don't we talk about your story, like how this whole brand started? Because you didn't start off in the design world. You were in
absolutely
finance
opposite.
world. Yeah, let's start about that.
Sure. So I actually went to school for accounting. I got my master's in accounting. I even got an MBA on top of that. And my whole journey in the very beginning of my life was, hey, how can I get into a career that my Asian parents would be really proud of? Which, those are a handful of selections. Mine was, I guess, a CPA or finance. And so, I always aimed for the steady as you go kind of role, and that paid well, comfy, good to go. And I was in the corporate world, and I, very fastidious, if that's a word, or very diligent in terms of working my career, growing my career. And so I rose up through the ranks relatively quickly, I would say, 10 years in finance. And, I kind of woke up one morning and realized, maybe it's not just one morning, but it just hit me that I'm not happy. Whatever that meant at that moment, I wasn't happy. From the outskirts, everyone would look in and be like, okay, Lisa is, on the rise. She has this great job in finance, and it seems like, she also has like, this is with my ex-husband, a white picket fence home. Everything is like taken care of, and it just seems so picture perfect, a kind of a life, I guess, from the outskirts. But really, I wasn't happy because, one, I'm working, how did I get there so fast? I worked long hours. I worked harder than anyone else around me just so that I can prove my worth. And in my personal life, that obviously had consequences. I wasn't reflective about who I was as a person. I was doing things that would appease like others in my life, and to like, whatever it is that people think is considered a status is the thing that I went after. So that had a ding in my personal life. My husband and I were going through a separation. Yeah. So between working long hours and then realizing I was, I was the only Asian woman at that level, a minority woman, whatever, at that level. So token woman, token Asian. And then working a ton of hours. And then also, having the whole kind of personal life dilemma of choosing career versus personal life.
Yeah.
And those culminate together to me, wanting to I went to the gym a lot too, because I was like, I have so much like emotional stress going on, emotional and physical, because you're also working a lot and you travel for work, like all sorts of different things are going on during that time. And on top of that, I was actually just completed my MBA too. So it culminated to me being like, wait, like I am just traveling all the time. I'm still carrying this like super ugly oversized backpack. It was like, something that my company gave me, and I couldn't find something more functional than that actually looked like it was meant for a kind of like 9 to 5 professional career woman that was on the go, wanted to really just like make a difference in her career. And I wanted to like fit like gym shoes. I wanted to like have a clutch that came off. I wanted to do I wanted this like Mary Poppins magical bag, and I couldn't find it. And so next thing you know, I was like, maybe I'll make it. I mean, I've been able to accomplish everything that I've thus far wanted to accomplish in my life, whatever that means at the time,
Yeah.
And so, starting a product or creating this product shouldn't be that hard. And then I was like, well, maybe next thing I got this idea in my head that like, maybe I should do this since this is such a product that's lacking on the market, maybe I should just make it and produce it for other women that are like me. And, next thing you know, I'm on the hunt for, okay, how do I make this bag? I shopped around all the material makers. I traveled to like New York Garment District to look for hardware, like scoured and like talked to like all these like leather shops, material shops, seamstresses. Like I just didn't know how to make a bag. So I like talked to all these people, and then I fundamentally realized that they actually don't know a lot of what we have, and kind of and this is just like the byproduct of all the things that happened probably over the last decades of like production, manufacturing. And we can't actually make bags in the United States, not in the functional and kind of functional and stylish is really hard to do.
Okay.
So at that point, I was like, okay, well, I was doing this as a hobby. I would, kind of work, and then in the evenings I would do my research. And at that point, I was like, well, there's a couple things that happened. One, I came up with the name because I was, going through all these changes, and then I realized like whatever this brand or whatever this product represents, like I wanted to represent like something that's like a life change or a time change, because as a professional woman, you have to balance so many different things. And I was kind of at that stage of like, do I make another big choice? Because to really try to figure out how to do this, I couldn't find the resources here in the United States. I would have to travel to these international trade shows to go find my manufacturer. And at that point, I tried my best to try to like, work with manufacturers like that I could find online, and I would send them my, what I created as a tech pack, because I'm not a fashion designer by training. So what my tech pack was is like nowhere, like it's just so like now that I know what I'm doing, sort of, it's so different. And so back then I just sent out whatever I had. And so, it was just a lot of repetition with manufacturers that I'd never had a relationship with. That was just kind of like, here's something, could you make this? I'll pay you money. Here. Okay, great. And then I get it back and like, this is awful. Okay, next. And you just kind of burn through manufacturers just to see like who would do it right. And you might get some things right, and then oops, this next other thing isn't right. And so I was deciding whether I want to leave corporate finance. And at that point, I was 2 levels below the CFO, at a public corporation, large corporation. So I was like, I am, do I want to do this? So I was like, I'm just going to give myself a year. So at the time, like when you're starting a business and you know nothing about it, like honestly, not knowing anything almost serves you well, because you're just, ignorance is bliss. And so I think in a way that allowed me to say, I'm just going to give myself a year. I have my CPA license. I can always come back. I'm, like after a year if this doesn't work out. And so I took the leap, because I was like, I'm at that point, I was completely separated from my ex-husband, who's my ex now. And from a career standpoint, I was like, I can just come back. So I gave myself a year to launch Lux and Nyx. So Lux and Nyx is Greek for light and night. And so that's where the name came from, this transition in time, transition in life. It's actually Greek goddess, light and night.
Okay.
And that's kind of how the brand was born. It was born from a woman who was trying to figure out how to balance it all. And I think that's like a very fundamental thing that's happening with a lot of women. I mean, because it's only been like 100 years since like women got the right to vote, and it's only been like maybe like 40 years or 50 years since like there's just as many women working in the workforce as men. In fact, I think there's like kind of a wave of more and more women coming into the workforce, professional workforce, as a result of these years of not being able to, I think, because if you look at the stats, it's kind of crazy, like something like 57% of college campuses are women now. It gets higher in the graduate degrees. And then if you look at, like, I think just last year, they actually, I forget if it was like McKinsey or KPMG, one of those like big companies that did a stat. There's more women in the professional workforce now than men as of last year.
Oh.
And that's just, something's going on. And,
Yeah.
but, there's just still that stark realization of like, there's still very few women at the top. So, but there's a lot of this that's happening where this identity of, in the past, women, we were the childbearers, we took care of the home. And, as our, because we have to give birth, there's a high rate of death historically, in the past for women. So it's hard for women to take on leadership roles because you might end up, something might happen to you during childbirth and, and then you can no longer be a leader. But now with technology, with advances in like the medical field and stuff like that, we no longer have that as a fear. And so that probably what we're seeing, more and more women are taking on and wanting to get to that leadership role, but we're still trying to balance out, okay, what does that mean? Because just 30 years ago, we were told we were, dependent on our spouses, and we were, meant to be childbearers, and, we have to make time for everything else, when in reality, it's a balance. And, we're coming in head with that right now because more women are coming to the workforce and more women are wanting to have a career, and they're trying to balance out their personal life. And those are challenging and difficult questions of like life in general. So, but Lux and Nyx is there to service that. Like, we're here to represent those women who are trying to balance it all. And we're here to make sure that they have products that serve them, that service their technology equipment that they have to use on the go. They're the things that service their life is kind of the way that I think about it, but then also do it in a way that's like, I'm not wearing a knapsack on my back while I'm going about and trying to look like I'm, professional and taken seriously, which is how I felt back then. I looked like Dora the Explorer on heels with my giant backpack that was like, not meant for me. So we're just trying to create products that, fit into their lifestyle, and try to help them win in some ways, like even if that means like making them feel good and look good in a product, and also servicing them with their technology items and work papers and light papers, baby items, food, whatever that might be that they need to carry.
So did you do like a marketing research or survey to see what it was needed to have all in one? Because you have multiple different bags, but like as you're talking about this, bags. So what did you do? Like a survey, like we need a place for my laptop. I need a place for how did you?
So I would say the very beginning, I was my prototype, I guess, or my research, maybe like a few of my friends. But as the company grew, we actually did we called this like Build Together campaign, where we survey our followers, survey professional women to ask them what are some of the top 5 items that they want in a bag, whether it's a large bag, it's a small bag, and then we'll ask them what's the thing that 2 different questions. What are the top 5 items versus what's the thing you must live, like you cannot not have, are actually 2 fun. So the top 5 items, number 1 item that they want is like 70% of women voted, they want, a pocket for their cell phone. So every single one of our bag fits a cell phone, or there's a dedicated cell phone pocket. Like, it's so simple, but yet it's just like that small detail. I mean, of course, there's other things in that, data research. But the number 1 thing that they cannot live without is actually a laptop holder. And so that was interesting because, if you look at the products on the market for females in particular, whether it's a tote, even backpacks that look like it might fit like a more professional polished look, they don't have pockets, they don't have functions, they don't take into consideration these things. So whenever I think about our products and how we design our products, we feature on, like, we focus on a lot of these like top features and functions that people want in a product. And then we design around it to make sure that it looks aesthetically pleasing. So they're very discreet, even if they're beautiful and they look like they're like a designer bag with like the hope is that they don't look like they're, like the Swiss Army knife, whatever look.
Yeah, right.
They look nice, they look polished, they look minimalistic, but they actually are, which is what's so badass about them.
Okay. And what was the first product that you made? Like, what was the first bag?
Oh, yeah, it is our Zoe backpack. I don't have one right next to me. Okay. I can go grab one if you like, but it is basically, it's that bag that I was telling about. I needed something for my shoe compartment. So it has like 2 pockets for shoe compartments. I needed something that the front clutch comes off so I can actually leave the backpack portion and take the clutch, because when you're traveling for business travel, you want like it's a clutch, but it also turns into a crossbody. You can wear it as a belt bag, you can wear it as a shoulder bag, you can wear it like 5 different ways. And then there's also like an umbrella strap on the bottom as well. So when you're traveling and you want to be hands-free, like that's the bag to have. That was like the dream bag that I wanted at the time, which was like everything that's in it. And then I learned that like when you put everything in something, it's like it is, no wonder I had to go through like 40 different prototypes before my very first bag actually got made. And I was like, okay, this is it. Wow. And then after that, all of our other bags were like, it was just like the first one is always the hardest. After that, our products, I just knew how to make bags. I think I just kind of put myself in a position where I was like, it was so difficult. Right. It was so hard that, after that, I basically learned how to make a bag, make a good bag.
And so you had that bag, and then what was your next stage?
So in the very beginning, well, keep in mind, I have no retail background. I have no marketing background. I have no idea what a collection, silhouette, colorway, seasons, what does that, any of that even mean? Like, no idea. So when I first launched Lux and Nyx, I did that bag that was super functional. And then I did a bunch of other bags, which for a fashion world person, that would be called silhouettes. So I did a bunch of different silhouettes, no collection. So just like random design bags, but they were just like, oh, I see this as a popular shape that people, like in, out there on the market. I just like look at like, oh, what's popular and stuff like that. And then, I realized like, okay, like I will make some just like bags that didn't have as many functions, but they were just like beautiful, simple bags. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh, this is what you do. You just like create a bunch of products, put them on the website, and then hope that it sells. And I did that, and it was an utter failure. So, I mean, not saying it was utter failure, but like, you talk about like inventory turnover and stuff like that. Yeah. Over time, I learned that our thing that people really look to us for is products with function. So, and the thing is, there's so many beautiful bags out there and bag brands out there that like you really can't, like that wasn't our position. That wasn't why I even started the brand. So, even if I created marketing material, like it was really hard for me to put marketing and thought and story behind a product that was designed just solely for looks. And so it always needed to have something that was functional about it. And then I started creating just realizing that was the case. So our collections after that were, okay, it's got to be both polished, stylish, and functional. And that's our niche. And I understand that that on-the-go woman kind of mentality that I know like, okay, these are things that are really important. These are things that, like the gold chains may weigh us down. So let's less gold chains sometimes, unless it's a removable gold chain, that would be fine. Right. But like those little details of like, hey, like we want a product that serves our lifestyle, not the other way around. You don't want to, Right. Yeah. So it's definitely made some. There's a lot of different transitions, which is very appropriate considering our brand name is Lux and Nyx, and it's all about transitions and life changes.
Definitely. Yeah. So you're an advocate for sustainability. How do you practice sustainability while you're designing your?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sustainability and, as even like all of us have these like ideal goals of being green. So like even like just it starts with I'm going to use this as an example because I think it's relatable to human beings in general for them to understand like how that works in the fashion world. So as a human, I'm like I use plastic the least amount as possible. I try to compost. I try to do recycling. Here's the issue. Even when I do that the most, you're still going to have, when you go out to eat, someone's going to give you a takeout box that has plastic on it. Unless you want to just like completely like just bring a bowl, it's just like, we can also do that too, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten that to that point yet, but maybe I will. And then when you order things from like stores online, you're always going to get packaging, and you would be like, I always like watch our like, recycle bin to like watch the packaging pile. Sometimes like half the packaging goes in recycling, half the packaging goes in the trash, right? And you can't do anything about it. And as a person, as my ethic, it seriously worries me. But let's talk back about like, how do you do that in fashion? Where in the fashion world, it is like, it's one of those things where you have to be cognizant about incremental improvements, because, even as a human being, you can't block out everything, because it's a similar situation in the fashion world. Sometimes even if you try, it's fundamentally just difficult to block off everything. So what I do is to the things that we can control. So it starts with, okay, making the product. How do we think about the materials that we source? What material can we use? Like right now we have a backpack that's like literally 100% like sustainable, because it's like recyclable nylon plus cotton canvas inside lining, plus the tags are made from paper. And so like it's like those kind of things, like packaging, also think about too. I've even gotten to a point where I'm like, I want even the poly bags to be 100% biodegradable, which I've been told that's not a good idea, because they actually biodegrade upon shipment. I will figure that problem out. Yeah. I will figure that out. But but those are the things where it's like, oh, okay, gotcha. So this is one of those things that's like, everything will come in due time, And I think it's the motion of like wanting it, and as a society wanting it, to get it to a point where it's like, okay, we're getting better. Let's get better. I mean, I would hope that speeds up a little bit faster. I don't know if I want to, quit Lux and Nyx just to go back to school and become a, biochemical engineer yet. That seems like challenging just for me to get a biodegradable. Maybe I will. I've actually looked into this, which is like crazy, but like, so you think about it from the product, and then you think about it from like, you look at like our warehouse actually uses like solar panels as for electricity, things like that. And then from a logistics standpoint, we use like FedEx and UPS. So they have, I know they're big companies, but they had one of them, I think it was when we looked at it, FedEx had carbon neutral first, like a carbon neutral plan first. So we're like, okay, let's use FedEx. Like, so like things like that like you could, like, it's not gonna be perfect. It's incremental improvements. I think if we rack our heads around like, oh my God, let's get there now, tomorrow, we're never going to sleep at night. We're going to not be able to forgive ourselves. But I think the main thing is like, how can we, and then I think, it's kind of like people losing weight. If you're like, hey, you're, whatever, like you're 50% overweight. So you're trying to lose 50% overnight, and then you will give up instantly. I think it's all about like, hey, like, I understand you can't lose 50% weight right now, but what can we do to like every day a little bit, and it compounds. And that's how I think about sustainability, and how that transitions into like how we think about like our product, our packaging, our shipments, what kind of partners do we use? How are they thinking about this? Like, are they working on something towards this too? That would be amazing. Like those are things that like we ask, and we actually ask our partners for that too.
So going back a little bit, you said you have a warehouse. When did you get to that point?
Okay, so clarification. When I say our warehouse, we use a 3PL. It's a local mom and pop shop.
Okay.
And so they're a partner that's been with me since day one.
Okay.
There is a, like, do you get to a point? So, we're completely, for a national bag brand, we're national now because we're department stores. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that soon too.
We're fully remote, which means like, like it's so, and it was like, it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't know what I was doing until I'm like, oh wait, that was actually a really smart decision. Because, So it's called 3PL. So it's a third party logistics. There's a lot of 3PLs out there actually that could help with this from a logistics standpoint. So I accidentally met our 3PL partner who's local. It was actually through another friend who, and then they're called Gateway Fashion Group. So they were thinking about just starting out in a 3PL business. And, I was one of their first clients basically. And at that time I was just like, who was I, right? And so I kind of grew, I guess like they grew with me or I grew with them, and at first I was like, man, this is expensive. Like, do I want to pay for this or should I just ship every single one by myself? And I've actually over the years, I learned to appreciate what they have to offer, especially since, when you're starting a brand, like, I mean, I'm self-funded, so that's maybe different than someone that's like, flush with VC cash or something like that. But as a business, like you have so much from growing your sales, doing your marketing, doing product design. I mean, you can hire people, but at the same time, like you're going to be the best at it until you can train someone else, until you figure it out and you can train someone else to do it. And maybe that person can do 80% of what you can do,
right?
70% of what you can do.
That's hard. It's hard finding someone with your talent and your background and your passion.
Yeah, and like I think some part of it is like you also have the most context, like whereas like someone that's coming in, they might be good at one thing, but then they won't have the full context. So they're even like something small as like packaging and making sure it has all the right storytelling, and that's very marketing, right? And like, but then also like knowing that packaging, where do you source it from? How do you source it? How do you package it? How does it come together? How do you make sure that goes into the product? All sorts of things that like so you can train someone else to do it, but also like they don't have the context yet, so it just takes a lot. So wait, what were we talking about again? I should mention that too. I have a short-term memory.
So you mentioned your warehouse and you were breaking it down, like how
yeah.
Because I think this is important because once as you start getting more successful and start making more sales, you can't hold everything in your basement and your
you can't
in your kitchen,
you
in your living room, and So what do you do?
Yeah, and I would say, if this was a hobby, I would say just do it from yourself. But if this is something that you're thinking about doing full time or seriously, having a 3PL and then they manage their staff, they take care of all the things, so you don't have to like worry about like, oh shoot, like so and so is sick today, so am I going to be able to send out my stuff? Like I just have to worry about like everything else, like the front end, the marketing, which is already a lot, but like even accounting and stuff like that. But at least I know one piece of it is good. Like, hey, someone is always going to be there to ship our products. And, like the customers won't get delays. Our products are stored in, that's the other thing. If you invest in a warehouse, you have to make sure that the warehouse is temperature controlled. You have to make sure, like all sorts of different things. And then it's like, and then you have to purchase the equipment to like the racks and everything like that. And then also, and then boxes, don't forget boxes, labels, tissues and stuff like that. It's all things that like, if you find the right partner, they can help you with a lot of it. Not saying that's always perfect, because that's the other thing I learned is like, sometimes it's better to work with someone that's easy to work with, that you can trust, than to be like looking for the most perfect setup, the most least expensive. It's like just sometimes it's worth just paying up for someone that you can trust and you can work with easily and how they operate.
Get it done.
And the reason I'm saying that is like I think sometimes like we always like look for like, oh well, this 3PL is cheaper, or like blah blah blah, this is less expensive. It's like do what makes sense for the math, but at the same time know like sometimes if it's less expensive, there's trade-offs there. And sometimes it might be okay, but do you want to spend the time on that, or do you want to spend the time on growing your sales? And so those are kind of the trade-offs that you have to make on a daily basis. And sometimes I'm just like, what, it's not even worth like looking into. I love working with my current partner. Like they have, they're just great. And I just know them. I've worked with them for 6-7 years now. I know them. And then also back to like, this allows me to kind of do the things, be on the go. I go to conferences. I go to like different things where I have to travel. And so with that comes like needing someone that's reliable, that can ship products to our customers. That's important for me, is that we can take care of our customers.
So recently you started a unisex line. What motivated that, and what do you see the future on this brand?
Yeah, it's very good. It's an interesting question. Going back to this goes back to when I first started Lux and Nyx and, had these functional backpacks that the company gave me because I couldn't actually find anything to replace them. So I would have a super cute, like, designer crossbody bag with an oversized backpack. That's kind of like my look, right? And so what gave me the idea to like just kind of explore different line expansions and stuff like that was like, I was like, how did I get that bag? And why was it that as a professional working woman, I got that bag? Why don't professional women deserve a better looking backpack while they're working? Like, why does it have to be oversized? And it seems like it's meant for, and it is actually meant for someone that's like probably over 5'10". So I kind of started thinking about this and I was like, what, how did that get there? How did that happen?
Right.
And so I looked into it. And so there's this whole industry they call like corporate gifting. It's kind of, there's multiple different names for it, but that was one of them. So I looked into it and I was like, oh, so those are actually called unisex backpacks. Man, unisex backpacks suck. Was kind of my thought. So that, was the next, well, like, hey, like, I think I can solve that problem.
Mhm.
So, of course, our Lux and Nix products are, so the way that we think about setting up our products now is how can we service professional women from first day of their graduation or even in college, like when they're starting to think about building their career, all the way to when they made it. And there's like different archetypes. So like from what we call like the Aspire group, like so people the women that are like, hey, I want to do something, man, I really want to do something, to like ambition, which is like they're getting up there, right? They're getting up there. Yeah. They're like very high up in the org, but also not to the tippy top. And then there's the givers, and what we call the givers are like they made it. They're at a point where it's time to give back to all the other women that are trying to get there.
Okay.
And so the products that we've developed up until that point have been all for the ambition group. And so that means it's that core audience where it's like the look, professional look, and the function really matters. And so when I got to that point, it was like, okay, so when do I actually care to get that backpack? Like, because the unisex backpack where it's like, it's unisex. So it's like, it's more about functionality. It's more about like, and I think that's the perfect blend of like where the masculine and the feminine meets is like, how can we create a bag that's unisex that women also love? And so by the time you get to like a professional, like the ambition stage, you're like, I want something that's nicer, more polished. I probably want something that's like actually fitting for, it's not about the utility is, there's like the swing of like, okay, when you're in the ambition stage, you want a little bit more fashion, a little bit more like, because you're looking for like nicer blazers, nicer looks, like nicer dress, nicer shoes and stuff like that. And so there's a stage in, like a career woman's life where it's like, hey, like we're okay. Like we want something that just looks professional, looks like we're, like take us seriously, but also we don't want to spend so much. And that's kind of where we place kind of our unisex line, because it both fits into the world of like, how do we get more products into professional women's hands as they are getting these work bags that don't fit their frames. So it serves both companies can gift this to our professional women, because guess what? Otherwise, they're going to get an oversized backpack that's hideous and doesn't serve their purpose and makes them look unprofessional.
That makes
and
sense.
It's at a price point that a college graduate can afford. And so this is where we focus our kind of unisex line is that. And also we actually do get men that love the products too, because even though we're thinking about it from a like, what would a woman love? It's really about the aesthetics of it. I'll explain this. This is actually my bag, so sorry if it's like actually open and stuff like that. But so this is a 17-inch laptop bag, but you cannot even tell that it's 17-inch if you look at it on my body.
Yeah.
So this is full. I have stuff in here already. But like the what we do is like it's a slimmer frame on the side here.
Right.
And then it tapers down on the bottom, so it doesn't look like it's a 17-inch laptop bag.
Okay.
And this retails like $100. So, but it has all the detail and functions and features that women love. So, luggage trolley sleeves, double water bottle pocket. This is the bag that's 100% sustainable. So it's recyclable nylon. Inside is cotton canvas, so you can kind of see that on the inside, on the materials and stuff like that. And then we have, we think about like the branding, the mission statement. So we have our mission statement here. We empower high achievers with products that help them make a difference in the world. Because we're not the superheroes. Our clients, our customers are the superheroes.
Right.
We're just here to help.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that's something you can take, someone can take to the gym also.
Exactly. It's something, yeah. So
That's a part of people. I mean, healthy lifestyle is a part of many corporate lives because they don't have time.
Yeah.
They have to get,
yeah,
they
exactly.
have to go
And
from work to gym or gym to work or whatever hour it works, in their schedule.
Yeah. And we have male customers that want that like slightly polished look for the day to day without looking like, because like men also have that same issue. It's like these backpacks are great for like, there's a place for backpacks that are oversized. Like when, like for example, like I don't claim we can serve the construction industry well, for example, because you do need something that's a little bit more rugged, right? So, but who we service well are like the 9-to-5 professional white collars. And that's kind of like our, because I've learned to stick into our lane or stay in our lanes. Like our lane is, this is who we care about. This is who we design for. Because there's an audience that's been served already for the construction group. There's more rugged backpacks. There's more outdoor backpacks, but there isn't a thoughtfully designed, intentionally designed bag for professional women and their allies, which is what I call the Unisex Line. So it's for professional women and their allies. So it's how we think about it. It's our perspective on how we think about that design.
That's cool. And how new is that? That's pretty.
Last year, yeah.
Last year?
Just like maybe a year, a little bit over a year.
And how long did it take you to find? So you, in the beginning, you talked about production. Do you have a consistent vendor that you use now? Or are you still?
Yeah, it's the same manufacturer I worked with since the very beginning. When I traveled overseas and I went to one of the trade shows, I came across a company that is from my they're from my parents' like hometown. My parents were first generation immigrants. St. Louis is my hometown, but I came to St. Louis when I was 6 years old. So so we have that the immigrant background where it's like, you just like, that's one of the reasons why I had to get the finance job. You know what I mean? Right out of college, it's like, oh, I can't, I lived on food stamps. So like, I've got to make money, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I found them on at a conference or at a trade show where they're from my parents' hometown, which is a small fisherman's town over in Asia. And then I was like, just because in the Asian culture, they're like, oh, like if you know somebody from this area, then they're like, they treat you like very much like family. And so then they're like, well, what are you doing here? And so the next thing you know, I was telling them about my qualms of not being able to find a right manufacturer. And they're like, well, we know somebody. And so that's kind of how I bridged the gap with our manufacturer. And I've been working with them for 6-7 years now. And it's the same thing where it's like you learn over time, how to work with someone. It's kind of like a marriage. Like you have to figure out like you work through the, celebrate the wins, but then also work through the weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And now where your bags being sold?
So I think I always like to kind of tell a little bit about like where we were and where we are now, because I think if I tell people where it's sold, people are like, oh, that's great for you.
Yeah, that's why I waited to the end. That's the big finale.
Yeah, and so I think we might have glossed over a little bit about the period where I almost quit. During the 6 years, which is like during COVID, when we had a business model where it was all about, I realized like we were making sales at these pop-ups because we can talk to our customers, we can, tell them about the brand story, they can see the quality, the function, they can learn about it, it's exploratory, it's fun. And then, every single event, pop-up event, we have happy customers that walk away with our product.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and that completely we went from, hero to zero, basically, because we were having our pop-up set up, and we were planning on getting to like 50 cities at that point. We already got to 16, and then at 16, COVID happened, had to shut down the operations for that. And then I was like literally bawling by myself, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And, a lot of like insecurities and imposter syndrome came out during that time, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just like so devastated. And so
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Like you just should I just give up at this point?
Yeah.
I didn't. And so I started to kind of, it's a little bit starting from zero again, just to be like, okay, how can I grow the brand? At that point, wasn't willing to give up on this idea of like a great brand for women that work so hard for what they're trying to achieve in life. Like it just wasn't something I wanted to give up on, that idea of helping them and supporting them along the way. And so I kept going, and we, I guess I should say at that point, it was back to looked at our data, and we were still getting some customers from like internationally, from Australia a week, UK a week. And I realized it was from a Marie Claire article that we got into. We did some PR pitch testing, and we got into a Marie Claire article. Great. It was still driving traffic. And during COVID, what happened was different countries were closing down at different times. And so people were trying to get a travel bag right before COVID closed, I guess, whatever it was. But we saw these weird bursts. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should keep digging into that. So I realized also PR, like getting into like publishers, like getting in, being like editorial picks was a thing that I needed to continue. I think that will be a way to grow this even during COVID. And so I continued that. And then also we got these like I think I tested some paid ads as strategies as well, during that time. So really thinking about transitioning to just online only. And that's when I truly became fully remote too. And so the remote setup has, having the 3PL who handled all the shipments, that really worked out. When I was like literally like crying my eyes out, trying to figure out what to do next. And then trying to grow the sales channel, just focus on that and trying to do different tests and getting it back going again. And then we also had, some purchases that were like, 50, 100, and, like starting coming out of COVID. And I was like, what is this? Who are you guys? Why are you buying our products in so many? This is awesome, but why? And it turns out, there's a lot of women conferences, and companies want to support their women leaders, employees, and so they'll have, there's like International Women's Month, there's Women Road Warrior Day, there's so many different celebrations of women that companies are doing, and there's a lot of conferences and events that's surrounding like, let's celebrate this group that is doing a lot of amazing things. And so that became a thing. We talked about the kind of our gender neutral line that actually came from that too, because it started off with we're just like the it bag for the women conferences. And then next thing you know, I was like, well, oh yeah, like I do remember that now. I remember I did get a bag, and that bag was unisex. And how did that work? And so it kind of all like, sometimes ideas come in weird connection points. You don't even know how one thing like kind of all gets mixed up together. Because the gender neutral line was kind of born from women conferences, because we realized that like if there's women conferences, there's also the male allies, but the thing is like we really want to service women and in a way that they haven't been served before. So how can we create a gender neutral line that actually speaks to them? And so it ping pongs together, and ultimately back to your question. So those two kind of core ideas and strategies got us cash flow, got us the ability to just continuously develop. And we've been, lasted for 6 years. So at some point, something's got to give. So after 6 years now, we're in like Nordstrom's, we're in Macy's, and we're, working something through with Bloomingdale's as well coming up.
Wow.
So, and more to come, and the retail side is great. And I couldn't be more thankful for like where we are, considering the fact that just during COVID, I was like ready to give up because just starting a business is so much harder than anyone had ever told me when I first began. And, the ignorance is bliss part really was the thing that got me started. But after a while, you realize what keeps you going is actually not the ignorance, it's the willingness. It's a lot of having something bigger than yourself, I guess, is what really ultimately drove me.
So did it all happen at once, or which
Sure.
which store picked it up first, or did it all happen at the same time?
Well, it's weird. It's one of those things where it's like it's a I've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that throughout the years in terms of like, I've spoken with almost, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of the department stores previously. So what happens is you go to the buyers and you present your products, you talk about the brand story and everything like that. And then, they might say, hey, this is not the right, like right now, we're not looking to pick you up because we already have this category filled. Or, hey, we're not looking to bring on new brands. And so the conversation's always been there. So it's not like, I talked to them once and then bam. It's like, tried this route, didn't work. Tried that route, didn't work. Tried this route. And it just so happens that everything came together for a lot of these stores this year. So even last year, I had zero retail plan for this year. Zero retail plan for this year. And now we're like, okay, retail's a handle, because you can't, like, it was one of those things you couldn't really quite predict. It's like, it's not within your control, so you can control what you can control. And then when the opportunity comes, like, are you ready to just kind of like take it? Or, like it's, when I say that, I mean, like if a meeting comes up and a buyer's like, yes, I want to look at your products. Are you ready for that? And you have, so the preparation is, I would just say, like an entire lifespan of Lux and Nyx, I've been preparing for this. When it happened, it's like, it's a combination, what they say, like a combination of luck, luck, opportunity and readiness or preparedness. That's truly it, so I can't say it's like, oh, it's just like, it's that easy. It's not. It's a lot of like willingness to just know that it's going to come, but you just don't know when it's going to come.
That's amazing. So what advice would you give, a student or an aspiring entrepreneur that's looking to get into the fashion business? Obviously, you talked about your successes and failures and how, you put on all the hard work and you're solo. You don't have what someone who's looking to get into business.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. One, if you're looking to start a business, you're not looking to make money in the beginning, in particular. So if you're willing, so the only thing that's going to really, well, there's a couple things, I guess. One, you have to be doing it for something beyond yourself, or else you have no purpose. And if you don't have a purpose that's driving you and you're not going to make money, what's going to really drive you? So it has to be something beyond yourself. Two, it helps to have some business background. So even though, for people that go into fashion and, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the fashion world. But really what matters is like, what are your unit economics for your products? And, and then there's a lot of testing that you have to do. And each time you shouldn't just throw a bunch of resources at something hoping that's going to, amount to something. It's like, put some resources behind it. How did it do after a month? If that didn't go well, try something new. And then there's also the piece of like, what are the things that you're willing to wait out on? Retail, like, what we just talked about, like, that's something that like, I'm not actively doing it, because you can't actively do that. You can't like be like, every day, let me think about pitching to a buyer, because, there's only so many buyers out there. It's like, no, okay, this season, okay, great. Didn't work, no worries. Next season, I'll come back with a new lineup, new story, whatever it is. I'll try a different angle. I'll try, a different way. And, eventually I'll get there. But, like, it's okay if I don't, right? Like, don't be disappointed. I think that's the thing. So, and you get to a point where it's like, It's never perfect. Having business is never perfect. So I would say those three are kind of the things, and it's a combination of those three. And then maybe some other things that I like the rule of three. So I try to keep it to three things whenever I talk about advice, just because
it's easy to
we
remember.
can't remember more than three. Yeah.
And I have a short-term memory too, so
Yeah, great.
I like to stick to the rule of three myself.
Yeah, me too. I can't remember.
All right, I have a couple questions that aren't fashion related. What is so you live in St. Louis, like I do. You actually probably live about 10 minutes from me.
Probably.
You probably could have called me when you were crying and we could have consoled
I
each
know,
other.
too embarrassed to do that at that point. I was not self-reflective enough. Like now I might do it, but back then I was like, oh gosh, I don't want people to know I'm failing.
What is your favorite restaurant to go to in St. Louis?
Okay, well, I don't know if you know this about me now. I'm like a highly loyal person, so I'm like, I like my friend's restaurant, but really they're really, really good. So I shouldn't, it's I love Little Saigon.
Okay.
I know the owner Michael there. It's in Central West End. And Forks and Sticks. It's in the Loop.
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
That's Hatch.
Yeah.
So so those are kind of two of my favorite restaurants, and I'd like to take my friends there too.
Nice. What is your favorite color?
Black, obviously. A lot of black. I would say, like over my lifetime, it's probably like black, yellow, and red. If I think about all the different colors that I wear, but I also really like green, like this kind of green. The Kelly green's really nice too. So it's hard to say because I mean, I don't know. I love colors, but if you look at me daily, I only wear black. It's because it's just so easy to just like not have to. It like gives me more time if I don't have to worry about what I'm wearing.
Right.
But I like colors.
Last question. What's your favorite animal?
And dogs and bunnies. Dogs because they are loyal and happy, and they just make you, I don't know, they just make you so happy. I don't know. You never really meet a dog that isn't happy to see you. I mean, I'm sure, I know there's exceptions, and bunnies because I used to have one when I was in college, and it was because I wasn't responsible enough to take care of a dog, so I got a bunny. So I had a bunny for over a decade. Yeah, and she was really fat, and I really liked her. And her name was Jiggle.
Jiggle.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you.
I didn't know you ended these interviews with these questions.
Yeah. I want people to get to know you. We've learned about everything else. Now we got to know the,
like the human
behind the scenes you.
Yeah.
So where can we? You want to list all of your socials and website and all that stuff?
Yeah. So you can find us at our website, Lux and Nix. So LUX and AND Nix NYX.com. And then you can also find us at Nordstrom's.com and Macy's.com.
Nice. How's that feel to say that at the end?
It feels great. I mean, I can't complain.
Wow.
I mean, it's at this point, it's just like, let's just, where my goal right now is to be the, bless her heart, the late Kate Spade for the modern professional woman. And that would be the dream. That would be the dream, to make every woman out there feel happy and get more women in leadership roles. That would be my dream.
That is awesome. Well, you are definitely inspiring. And I want to thank everyone for watching, listening. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And we will see you next time. Thanks again.
See you when we see you. Bye.